Hey guys, it's Ronnie at the Tech Zone 10101. And today we're gonna be talking about computer hardware, and also hope you enjoy the following 20 minutes or maybe 15 minutes. So let's start. First, let's talk about the essentials of a computer, which are the RAM, CPU, motherboard, hard drive, and that's all of the essential, not really, the power supply also. And if you see a box like this, chassis with all the parts inside, this is called a system unit. And here, the gray box, it's called the power supply. So we will talk about it later. So now let's first talk about the motherboard itself. So a motherboard, this one, it is with a lot of circuits. On the bottom you can see it has the CPU mounting. It holds the CPU. It has PCIe 3.0 expansion slots. These two are also expansion slots, but they are in PCI 4-pin expansion slots, and this is a 16-pin version. So this motherboard has a single channel DDR3, which holds 2 RAM sticks like these. This is a 4GB DDR3 memory. We will talk about it later. And it has an I/O panel. It has a PS2 keyboard and mouse set, and a VGA port, 4 USB 2.0 port, and a gigabit LAN, gigabit Ethernet, and free audio jacks, 3.5mm one. So a motherboard is of course an essential to a system unit, as connect all the ports to the computer parts, including even USB ports to the front panel of the chassis. Well, it's just a different port. This is a USB 2.0 header, which are these pins, 1, 2, 3. Each of them holds one USB 2.0 port, and they are classified into mini ATX and ATX boards. And this is a mini ATX board, and which is with only 4 SATA free ports, 6 gigabit per second, and this is a 24-pin motherboard power supply. This holds the CPU, LGA 1155 connector. This is CPU extra power, and 2 CPU fans for this motherboard, which is in white, 1 and 2. So that's all for the motherboard. Let's talk about the CPU. So, what is the CPU? CPU stands for Central Processing Unit, and is the brain of the computer. So, it has 2 major manufacturers, which is Intel and AMD. Now, Intel's processors are used commonly, and AMD processors are only used for gaming computers when you build one. So, let's see. Take a look at the CPU itself. Unlock it, and here's the CPU. Oops. Chip. When you touch the CPU, be sure not to touch the gold pins under it, as it will damage the CPU itself, and it will affect the performance of the CPU, and you may not be able to turn on a computer because these gold pins contact with these gold pins on the motherboard. And yes, so CPU has 2 parts. They are the control units and the arithmetic and logic units. The control units, which are somewhere here, the 2 units are here, and I don't know what the gold pins are for at the outside. And so the control units is used to control the system resources, as how many RAM will the system use for Windows, and what clock speed should the CPU be clocked itself. And the arithmetic and logic unit do maps, also reads data such as ones and zeros. For example, 1 is yes and 0 is no. That is a must actually. Different CPUs have different sockets, and the CPU has an LG55. This is an Intel Pentium processor. As you can see, it's G2120, and it has LGA1155, which means 1155 pins are gonna contact with the motherboard, including those in the middle, and also there's a complete socket here. So how do you plug that in is like this edge. This is a edge here, edge to edge. That's finished like this. Don't apply any pressure to it when it is not down. That's because you have plugged in wrong. So and the LGA stands for the shape or the direction how the pins on the CPU itself will be placed. And also talk back, the logic unit is, for example, 1 is yes and 0 is no, as we talk about, and that is used for the CPU itself to process through Windows commands, to give answers and stuff. So the clock speed of the CPU is measured in gigahertz, which is actually a frequency, and 1 hertz means 1 cycle per minute. And 1 gigahertz processor actually has a lot of them, so you'll do a lot of cycles per minute, including when you move your mouse, when the monitor is going to respond to, and stuff like that. So that's the end of the CPU. As when you buy a CPU, it actually always, for Intel and AMD also, most of them come with stock CPU cooler, which is like this. Writes Intel. This is an Intel processor, as you know, and it plugs through a cable, a CPU fan cable like this. Here, the 4-pin, and it just simply connects it. That's finished. Then the CPU fan is, of course, working, but you may see some gray stuff under there, and both the CPU itself, they are called thermal paste, and there are fallix on the CPU that will just stand on the motherboard itself. Moving right along is the RAM, which is the system memory. In my case, this is a DDR3 memory, which is clocked at 1333 megahertz, and it is 4 gigabytes for a single stick like this. So RAM stands for Random Access Memory, and it's the main memory for the computer. It holds program and data temporally, and it doesn't work like a hard drive. It only stores data temporally, and data stored in the RAM sticks will disappear after the computer is turned off. And of course, even compared to an SSD, which we'll talk about later, RAM is still much faster these days. So the most common memory size of a single RAM stick is from 1 gigabyte to 8 gigabytes maximum for DDR3 RAM, which is actually 8 gigabytes is the maximum for a single stick, and I'm sure the memory size of the RAM will increase when DDR4 releases early 2015. So it plugs in this way. This, as I told you before, this is DDR3 RAM slots. They are different from PCIe slots because PCIe slots are much shorter. So they just plug in like this, and there is actually a lock. You have to unlock it before you take out your RAM or you install your RAM. After you install your RAM, the motherboard's lock will automatically get in, as you can see. It holds the RAM, and you're finished. To take it out, you just unlock the lock, and the RAM pops out automatically sometimes. So Another thing is ROM, ROM, which is similar spelling to RAM, and it stands for read-only memory. So ROM is a chip placed on my motherboard, which is, in my case, is here. Oops. The black chip here. Next to these pins is a chip, and the data inside cannot be edited or wiped, and it stores the picture of the logo of the manufacturer of the motherboard, and it's Asus in this motherboard, so it just pops up Asus logo that is stored in the ROM and cannot be erased. And it also stores the BIOS, which is the basic input-output settings when you boot up your computer, and it will not disappear after the computer is turned off, and it does not function like a hard drive and the RAM either. And the memory size of ROM is measured in kilobytes and megabytes, which are often in 16 megabytes or maybe less, a little bit less than that. So, as you know, another essential component is the hard drive. Here, it is 1 terabyte one. It's a Seagate hard drive, and it is a 3.5 inch hard drive, which connects to SATA power, and SATA connect to SATA is SATA, and stands for serial ATA. So a hard drive connects to one of these SATA ports, SATA 3, 6 gigabits per second, and hard drive is a secondary storage which all your programs and your operating system will store on it. For example, Windows, Macro Linux, and Microsoft Office, something like that. So for these hard drives, like these are mechanical hard drives, which has a larger storage capacity. This is the, do not touch this, this is one part of the platter, and here are the cache, which is linked to it. So it has the controller. So inside the hard drive, it has a plateau which is secured here, and also a moving head which is used for reading data on the hard drive using a magnetic connection between the platter and the reading head. So most common spinning speeds of the hard drive are 5,400 revolutions per minute up to 15,000 revolutions per minute, and they're quite expensive if you need that revolution. So the most popular nowadays we use in laptops and desktops are 5,400 revolutions per minute and 7,200 revolutions per minute. And as you know, we have just talked about SSD before when we are talking about that. So mechanical hard drives are called HDD, and SSD stands for solid state drive, and it is also a hard drive, but unlike mechanical drive, it does not have any moving parts, and it is a lot more faster than mechanical hard drives, as they use NAND flash memory, NAND. The advantage of SSDs include quiet operations than mechanical hard drives. Their memory is very fast, and they have a longer lifespan than mechanical hard drives. And the common capacity of an SSD is 64 gigabytes, 128 gigabytes, 256 gigabytes, and up to 1 terabyte nowadays. 1 terabyte SSDs are super expensive, And even if you want to buy a 128 gigabyte solid state drive, it is 3 times or 4 times more expensive than a 1 terabyte hard drive. So SSDs are very expensive. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the power supply, which is a gray box here. They may not, it is not a must to be gray, but in my case it is gray. And it supplies all the power to the motherboard and the whole system unit. And it is one of the most important parts in the computer except for RAM and CPU, as it supplies electricity to the motherboard, which is here, this connector, the 24-pin motherboard power supply, and it powers the RAM through the motherboard, and it also powers the CPU in most cases, unless your CPU needs a lot of power and you'll need to plug this in, the 4-pin CPU power supply. And in my case, it also powers my VGA graphics card, which connects through the PCIe 3.0, as this is a low-end graphics card. It is powered up through my motherboard, and in high-end graphics card they need external power from this power supply, and they plug it into PCIe power supply through the power supply to the VGA, or maybe display cards, graphics card, and GPU, whatever you call it. So they're commonly powered in 400 watts, 500 watts, 600 watts, 700 watts, and 750 watts. And the next thing we'll talk about is also a very important component of the system unit, which is of course the chassis. It acts as shell protection to the system unit, and it protects all the computer components inside from being accidentally electric shocked and bombed, so as to reduce physical damage to the system. It is classified into mini ATX and ATX cases, and this is of course a full-size ATX case. And a mini ATX chassis has only 4 expansion slots, and for this chassis, I don't know why it has 7, but it usually has 6 for the ATX chassis out there. So after talking about the essential components of the computer, now let's talk about not so important components in the computer itself, which the first is of course a DVD drive. So it is also called an optical disk drive, as you can see here, which is called ODD. This is Asus DVD drive, and it has dual layer and multi-layer. And because why this is included in the non-essential components, because not everyone needs a DVD drive, as DVDs are often used to install software, and nowadays they can just download it from the internet or just install their operating system using a USB flash drive or thumb drive. The optical disk drive plugs into one of the cages here, which is the large cages. They are 5.25 inch diagonal, and it just plugs right in there, and you can use it through the front of the case, which is right here. So of course it connects to a SATA cable, same as the hard drive. They have the same power supply. It is used SATA, as you can see, SATA, 0 ATA as you know it, and they have SATA connectors. They use power supply, SATA power supply, and SATA connector to the motherboard itself. So that's the end of the optical drive. So next up is, of course, a VGA card. This is a graphics card or display card, GPU, whatever you call it, and it is an NVIDIA GeForce GT 630, 2 gigabytes GDDR or DDR3 memory, and it does not fit here, as you notice that. So because it is connected to the motherboard through PCIe, which you call expansion slots, this motherboard is quite the graphics card itself is quite rubbish, and it's slow actually. It has one HDMI, one VGA port, and a DVI port, and it only connects it this way, and is a 16-pin connector. It connects through this way, PCIe, and lines up, connects, and is connected. So as you can see, I can now lift up my motherboard through the graphics card, and it does not drop. That means it's perfectly connected. And now I'm gonna pull that out of there. It's simple, and you just pull it in. This graphics card is used for simple videos, and why people need graphics card is simply because they have to play games on their computer, or they don't want their frame rate when they're playing back videos on their computer to lag. So that's the use of graphics card. Next up, we're gonna talk about network interface cards, which is here. This is a TP-Link one, and what is used is to let your computer receive wireless networks, and is attached to an antenna. So it is plugged into one expansion slot, the small one, 4-pin one, and is plugged in this way. Oops. Oh my god. And that's finished. So I can also lift it up my motherboard through this card, and it is the network interface card. So that's pretty much the end of my video. If you learn a lot, or you have learned something in this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel and also like the video. This helps me out a lot. So see you in another video next time. Bye.